Welcome to Deep Dive by the Quiet Footnote. We're really glad you're joining us again as we explore ideas that, well, stretch the mind a bit. Today, we're diving into the Silva Mind Control Method by José Silva. Now, this is interesting because it wasn't written by, say, a neuroscientist. Nope, it was penned by a radio repairman, but one with this really big vision. And yet, decades on, it still sparks so much discussion about, what the human mind can actually do. So our mission today for you is to unpack this. We want to look at the core ideas, try to see where the sort of scientific aims meet the more mystical promises, and ultimately find some practical tools that maybe you can use right now. So get ready, because this is a deep dive into some pretty profound potential.
It really is compelling, isn't it, how a book from way back then can still feel so relevant, especially now with, AI and everything constantly buzzing around us. Silva's background, him being this tinkerer, not an academic, that really shaped his whole idea that the mind could be, well, tuned, like a radio.
I like that, tuning the mind. Okay, so let's unpack that. Who exactly was José Silva, and what was the main problem he was trying to fix with this method he worked on for so long?
Well, José Silva was, like you said, self-taught, really an independent researcher. He started way back, I think, in the 1940s. Initially, it was about helping his own kids improve their focus, their grades. He played around with hypnosis first, then shifted more towards relaxation, mental imagery, that kind of thing. His core belief was, well, simple, but also pretty revolutionary for the time, that we all have this extraordinary potential locked away inside. Most of us just don't know the combination, you could say. We don't know how to access or control it.
Okay.
He saw a big issue with how most people operate mentally. We tend to drift, mostly in what he termed the beta state, alert, maybe stressed, just reacting to whatever life throws at us, rather than consciously directing our inner world. He felt that standard education just missed the boat on these like imagination, intuition, self-awareness, crucial stuff.
Right, things we talk about needing more of today.
Exactly. We might accidentally fall into relaxed states, daydream or whatever, but we don't use them purposefully. So his big goal became creating a system, a practical training method that anyone could use to sort of bridge that gap people saw between science and maybe mysticism or intuition, and unlock things like creativity, better intuition, even self-healing.
That's a really powerful vision, believing everyone has that potential. There's a quote from him, I think it sums it up. When you learn to function at the alpha level, you will learn to control your mind and your life.
Absolutely. And that quote is not just a nice phrase. It was his deep conviction. Mind training wasn't for monks on a mountaintop. It was like a practical superpower for ordinary people. You, me, anyone. Democratizing inner mastery, basically.
Yeah.
Giving you the controls.
Okay, so he's offering this powerful vision. But what's really interesting is he wasn't just saying, here's a new idea. He was actively trying to challenge things people just assumed were true back then. What were some of those myths he was trying to bust? For his readers, and maybe still for us.
Oh, yeah. He was definitely pushing back against some ingrained beliefs. The first big one was this idea that the mind can't be controlled. Thoughts just happen. That feeling of being swept away by your own thinking. Silva said, no, that's not right. The mind can be trained systematically, like you train a muscle.
Yeah.
Through practice relaxation, getting into that alpha state consciously, using visualization, you're not just a passenger. You can actually steer.
Okay, so taking the reins of your own mind.
Exactly. Then there was the myth. Imagination is just fantasy. It's not real. Silva completely reframed that. He saw imagination as a real, actual causal force. He'd do exercises, like imagining biting into a lemon.
Your mouth waters, right.
Right. Your body reacts. And the insight there, which science is catching up with now, is that your brain doesn't always make a huge distinction between something vividly imagined and something actually happening. That gives you this incredible lever, doesn't it?
Wow.
To influence how you feel, how your body responds, even what you do next. As he said, the mind creates images and the body obeys.
That's a huge one. Makes you think about, well, how you're using your imagination day to day. Maybe not always constructively.
Precisely. Then he tackled, healing is only physical. This was way before mind-body medicine was mainstream. Silva argued the mind plays a direct active role. Mental imagery could speed up recovery, lessen pain, maybe even boost immunity. He was really anticipating a lot of what we understand now.
Wow.
He also challenged ESP and intuition are supernatural gifts. For him, nah. Intuition wasn't magic. It was a natural sense, just underdeveloped in most people, like a muscle you haven't used much. Training, especially in the alpha state, could sharpen it. Quieting the mental noise lets those deeper insights come through.
So it's trainable, not just something you're born with or not.
That was his belief.
Mm.
And maybe the biggest one he counted was only geniuses or mystics can access higher mind powers. He totally democratized it. He taught regular folks, housewives, mechanics, students, that these abilities aren't exclusive. They're universal, trainable.
That really is radical for the time, isn't it? The idea that anyone, a mechanic in Ohio, could learn to consciously enter alpha, that changes everything about who gets to have inner mastery.
It was revolutionary. It shifted the whole conversation.
Yeah.
He basically presented visualization as a kind of technology for reality, blurring that line between just thinking about something and actually shaping things. And that idea, it's everywhere now. Sports psychology, coaching, self-help. It's fundamental. Plus, he was pushing for education beyond just memorizing facts, right? Highlighting creativity, emotional intelligence, mindfulness. Things we're still trying to get more of in schools today. His line, "Imagination is more powerful than knowledge when it is used with control," hits that nail right on the head. It's not just fantasy, it's a tool.
Okay, so we have the vision, the myths he busted. What about the actual how? What were the key techniques Silva gave you, to actually use these ideas?
Well, several really stand out as classic Silva. First, just framing the alpha state as a conscious tool. It wasn't just about chilling out, it was functional. Go to alpha, he'd say, and your mind becomes a workshop. He was giving people a way to tap into that reflective, imaginative part of the brain, what science might call the default mode network now, and those flow states where you're really in the zone.
Making meditation active, not passive.
Exactly. Then there's the mental screen technique. That's a real signature. You learn to project things, problems, goals, healing images onto this kind of inner movie screen in your mind. Think about it. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it's like taking all that mental clutter, pulling it out of your head and laying it out where you can look at it, analyze it, work on it. Really powerful.
Yeah, I can see how that would help organize thoughts.
Definitely. He also had specific techniques for healing and self-repair.
Yeah.
Visualizing healthy cells doing their work, giving you a sense of agency over your health. And memory and learning exercises, things like photographic memory drills, practical stuff for students wanting to improve recall, make studying more effective. And of course, programming for success. That's the repeated visualization of your goals, mentally rehearsing success to kind of pull yourself towards it. Athletes, performers, entrepreneurs use variations of this constantly today.
It really does all seem to come back to consciously directing that inner world. So how exactly did he suggest we tune our minds, as you said earlier? How do we activate these brainwave states, especially alpha?
He's pretty methodical about it. He understood the brain works on different electrical frequencies, right? Brainwaves, each linked to a different state of mind. Most of our day, we're in beta. That's alert, analytical, problem-solving mode. Good for tasks, but can also be busy, stressed. Not great for deep creativity. Silva's main target was alpha. Think of alpha as that relaxed but aware state. Like when you're daydreaming or just drifting off to sleep or waking up. Calm, receptive. His method to get there usually involved things like a structured countdown, maybe 100 down to 1, focusing on your breath, visualizing peaceful scenes. It was a systematic way to consciously enter and use that state.
So a deliberate process.
Yes. He also recognized deeper states like theta, which is more dreamlike, associated with really deep creativity and subconscious access. Modern science maps out others too, like gamma for those aha moments. But Silva's genius was making alpha accessible and functional for anyone. He had this saying, the mind is like a stage. If you fill it with fear, there is no room for solutions. It's about you consciously choosing what plays out on that stage.
That idea of alpha as a workshop is really key. All right, but let's talk about today. How does a method from the 60s or 70s, pre-internet, pre-AI, how does it really hold up now, in 2025, with everything moving so fast? Why does it still matter?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Look, Silva saw people back then living in constant beta, stressed, reactive. Today, with smartphones pinging, social media scrolling, 24/7 news, that constant mental churn is like 10 times worse. It's beta on steroids for many people. His method is basically an early blueprint for the kind of mindfulness tools you see in apps like Calm or Headspace. It gives you a way to step back, find some quiet, reclaim your focus amidst all that digital noise.
So it's almost more relevant now.
I'd argue yes, in many ways. And think about education's blind spot. As AI takes over more routine tasks, what makes us uniquely human? Creativity, intuition, complex problem solving, adaptability. Silva's techniques, visualization, intuition development are aimed squarely at cultivating those very skills. The skills AI can't replicate easily.
That's a good point.
And health. We've got epidemics of anxiety, depression, burnout. Silva's focus on relaxation, on using the mind for self-healing. It feels incredibly prescient. It's like preventative mental health hygiene, giving you tools to manage stress, visualize well-being, build resilience from the inside out before things get critical.
So it's about internal resilience in the face of external pressure. If Silva were here now, how do you think he'd adapt his method for our digital world?
Oh, he definitely integrate tools for digital overload, I think. Teach techniques for conscious digital detox, maybe program the mind to be less susceptible to that constant pull of notifications, attention training for the digital age. And he'd absolutely embrace the science. Imagine him using fMRI scans to show how the brain changes with these techniques. He'd weave in neuroplasticity, the fact that our brains physically change based on thought and experience. He'd connect it all to mindfulness research, grounding his practical exercises even more firmly in what we now know scientifically.
Using science to validate and enhance the techniques.
Exactly. And think about performance and creativity. In today's economy, uncertainty is the norm. Innovation is key. His methods could be adapted to help you mentally rehearse complex projects, visualize successful team collaboration, manage the stress of change, essential skills for anyone in leadership or starting their own thing, especially with AI changing the game.
Okay. And what about ESP? That might sound a bit out there for some people today.
Yeah, he'd probably rebrand it, talk about enhanced intuition or maybe subconscious intelligence. Not necessarily spooky stuff, but that ability to sense things beyond the raw data. In a world drowning in big data and AI analysis, that gut feeling, that intuitive leap, that's incredibly valuable. It's the stuff the algorithms might miss. And that, quote, the body responds to the mind's images as though they were real. Think about that now. With constant negative news, doom scrolling, it becomes urgent, doesn't it? To consciously choose positive mental imagery, to actively resist soaking in all that negativity.
So if Silva were updating his method now, it'd be like a guide to, well, hacking your own brain for thriving in this digital age using science as an ally.
That's a great way to put it. Hacking your brain for creativity, health, and resilience, using both his foundational techniques and modern understanding. Being proactive.
Okay, this has been fascinating. If someone listening walks away with just a few key things from Silva's work, what would you say are the top 5 takeaways you should really internalize?
Right. Let's boil it down. 5 core ideas. 1, you can train your mind like a muscle. Seriously. It's not just random chaos up there. You can direct it with practice. 2, imagination shapes reality. What you vividly picture isn't just fluff. It's like rehearsal for reality. It affects your thoughts, actions, even your body. 3, the mind and body are one system. Your thoughts impact your physical self. Mental imagery can genuinely aid healing and performance. They're deeply connected. 4, intuition is a natural trainable faculty. It's not magic. It's a skill. By calming the conscious mind, you let those deeper signals come through. You can get better at hearing them. And 5, everyday people can access extraordinary abilities. This stuff isn't just for gurus. Inner mastery is for everyone. You can learn to use these deeper mental states.
Those are really powerful. Okay, so thinking about all that, what's the core message, maybe the bit people miss, that you listening can take forward? What's the what next for you?
I think the deepest, maybe sometimes unheard message is this. First, you are not helpless. Stop underestimating your own power to shape your experience. Silva's work is fundamentally optimistic about your capacity. Second, realize your mind is sacred space. Treat it that way. It's your inner lab, your sanctuary. Protect it. Use it wisely. It's your greatest resource. Third, understand that belief is a technology. The techniques, the countdowns, the screen, they're tools, scaffolding. They help you build belief in your own abilities, engaging your subconscious to work for you. And finally, maybe most importantly now, imagination is survival. Don't just react to life. Project your goals, your solutions, your desired future first in your mind. Create it there before you expect it out here. And maybe one last thought. Silva had this idea, pretty provocative, that when enough minds focus on harmony, reality itself can be changed. Think about that in 2025. Our world feels so polarized, stressed. His idea of mental solidarity, focusing collective intention, feels almost, well, prophetic. It makes you wonder, how could your focused, cultivated inner state contribute, even in a small way, to a more harmonious reality? Starting right inside you. That's a dumb question to sit with.
That really is something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Silva Mind Control Method. We genuinely hope this gave you some aha moments, maybe some practical ideas you can actually try out. Take some time, reflect on how these concepts might fit into your own life, your own goals. How might you start tuning your mind?
It really underscores how timeless that human drive for self-mastery is, doesn't it? And how these tools, even decades later, can still feel so relevant and accessible.
Thank you again for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.